I was juggling a whole lot. And I thought just because I was young and hungry and ambitious that I could take on the whole world. And I learned the hard way, like if you're not taking focused action and focused effort into like what you're doing, it doesn't matter how hardworking or how abundantly minded you are, like you are going to
Mhm.
fail miserably.
Hey friends, I'm Rosemary Lewis, your homegirl, and I'm so excited that you are here. I do not care what it looks like on Instagram or HGTV. This whole being a realtor thing is not for the faint at heart. In 2017, I quit my job as a teacher to follow my real estate dreams and quickly found myself overwhelmed and struggling. Fast forward to today. Not only have I been recognized as one of the leaders in our industry, I have actually grown a business that I absolutely love. I don't care if you're a brand new agent trying to figure out how to get started or a veteran feeling overwhelmed and just stuck. I was just like you, and I totally get it. Many times I wish there was someone that I could just talk to about all the challenges I was facing. And that is why I created this space just for you. Like best friends do, I'm giving you all the tea related to navigating and thriving in these real estate streets. If I can do it, guess what? That's proof that you can too. Everything's better with friends, so let's succeed together. Welcome to the Real Estate Bestie Podcast. Well, hello there, real estate besties. Welcome to a very special episode. And let me tell you why it's special, because you all know that we don't often let the men folk on the podcast here. Most times you're listening to me or another one of our female real estate besties. But the guest that we have today, y'all, when I heard him speak at a mastermind event I went to a couple months ago, I was like, oh, that young man is special. And not only is what he shared special, and he's going to share with us today, but just his story was super dope. And he is just so cute too. We got to put his picture up so y'all can see him. Welcome, John Mendez, to the podcast. Hey, John.
Hey, long time no see. I'm super excited to be here. Honored to be on your platform. And you know, every now and then it's a little okay to get the male perspective a bit. So I'm excited to, talk to the ladies here listening today. I got some good stuff for you. Don't worry, don't tune out, tune in. I got some gems for you. So make sure to listen to the full episode.
Yes, listen to the full episode. And like you heard him say, and if he is here, and y'all know how I feel about you besties, that means that he is on and popping. So when I met John, he actually did a training about AI, and we are totally going to get into that today because I know that he has some tips that will definitely help us in our real estate business. But John, you actually have a background. You're only 2 years old. Like, I don't know how you did all this stuff in your life. But you have a background in real estate. So tell the little besties a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so for me, my story really starts. I mean, I grew up projects, 9 of us in a two-bedroom, Dominican, Guatemalan, food stamp section 8. Life was it's pretty tough growing up, but uh, long story short, right? For me, I never really realized that until I got older. Like I was just a kid, like you don't really realize a lot of the stuff that you don't have until you grow up, and it's like, oh, okay, this is not the norm. And as I got older, I was never the traditional entrepreneur at all. I wasn't selling candy. I had the lemonade stand. I didn't have the paper out, right? For me, like my entrepreneurial journey started mid-pandemic. I was in school in my sophomore year at UConn, taking classes from home. And one day I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And it made me realize that there was another way of viewing the world that wasn't being taught in school or wasn't being taught in my environment, but more importantly, wasn't really being taught at home. And that kind of sparked me on this wave. And during that winter break between fall 2020 and spring 21, I ended up watching a bunch of YouTube videos trying to get as much information as I can. And I seen this one real estate course. It was on wholesaling. It was like no money needed, no credit needed, just got to be 18. I'm like, oh shoot, the course is only $500. Well, all right, let me pay for it. Boom. So actually, how I got into real estate was to get into real estate wholesaling. And when Connecticut's an attorney closing state, so one of the attorneys was like, "Oh, you can't transact in real estate unless it's on the market, and it's illegal if you don't have a real estate license," which is technically true. But wholesaling is done off market, meaning it's totally legal as long as you do it off market. But at the time, that was the real estate professional, right? So I was like, "All right, crap, guess my idea is over," and I was down for a month. So I started spring 2021 semester, still at home, And I was just like, well, this real estate thing isn't gonna work out for me. I started working at K Jewelers, and I forget what like kind of sparked my dream. I remember just thinking like, yo, if I can help these people buy like, a couple $1,000 anniversary rings, and they're like super happy and like imagine a home. I already tried real
Mhm.
estate. The investing thing didn't work out. What about getting my license? So I stopped showing up for my college classes, signed up for real estate classes here locally in Connecticut. And for like 6 months, I was just getting after it. I was working like 60, 70 hours a week, plus studying for my real estate exam. Ended up passing my exams 2 weeks after I turned 20. It took me about 3 tries, mainly because I forgot to study. I was just busy working. And from there, that's how I got into real estate. And it's just been a hustle nonstop since. There's more to the story, but that's how I got into the real estate space.
No, you just dropped so much. So yeah, I just hope you're tracking. First of all, John, how old are you?
22.
22 years old. So when I met him, like he took the stage, commanded the stage, and it's just amazing to me. Like I literally have a kid older than you. How about that? So that is just crazy to me. But what I love is that, first of all, you picked up a book.
Yeah.
Amen. I have something I used to have on my vision board. It said the key to get anything is like picking up a book. So something that is very available to all of us. You instead, I mean, I'm pretty sure you were partying and hanging out some, but you were thirsting after knowledge and you just went for it, right? You went for it. And but when the first thing didn't quite work out, you actually did something else and you were able to correlate your 9 to 5 job to how this could look in real estate. Just walk me through just kind of that, like when you weren't passing your test, like were you ever discouraged? Or because I have a lot of besties that
Mhm.
are in that stage, they either they're brand new or they're even looking to become a real estate agent, and just getting through the coursework is it feels overwhelming on top of actually building a business. So what made you keep going?
Yeah. So for me, let me bring it back a little bit because you mentioned something about the book stuff. So there's a quote, and I'm gonna alter a little bit. The bestie who can read but chooses not to only lives one life, but the bestie who reads many, who can read many books, lives many. And so it's
Mhm.
like the more books you read, the more knowledge you consume, the more perspective you can gain. And so although yes, I am 22, I feel like I'm so much older than what my actual age says I am. I just spent so much time in my own head, so much time consuming information, so much time talking to people like yourself and just getting all these new perspectives. And it's like it really helps shortcut the learning curve for literally everything in life. And it's just
I love
like
it.
books were the thing that got me into it though. So whatever it is though, you have to be consuming information. It's a nonstop, quest of learning that you're on in this lifetime. And now I don't read many books, but it's conversations now, it's podcasts now. So still information, just a different medium. So if you're not
Yeah.
consuming information some way, you got to get on that. Listening to this is the first right step, but you got to start talking to people, and start getting different perspectives from everywhere, from books and podcasts and whatever you can, just as many different ways. Just jam your brain with information that's relevant to where you're
Yep.
currently at. That's the hard part. Not just anything and everything, relevant to where you're currently at. In terms of the actual exam, though, for me, I didn't get discouraged primarily because it was like, all right, I paid for this real estate class. And so I'm gonna get my license one way or another. And like the first time I failed by like 3%, I think it was. And like I normally never study for exams in high school. And in high school, you can get by with it. In the real world, it doesn't really work out that much. So I was like, well, then that was a little harder than I expected. And then from there, the second time I tried, that's where I realized literally almost every question was like the same exact thing. And so the second time I tried it, I failed by like 1% this time. And I was like, there's literally no way I just failed by 1%. Like if I completely failed, it probably would have maybe, I don't know, might have discouraged me. But it's like I was literally right there both times. And
Yeah.
so then the second time, all right, they're definitely asking me the same questions. So I just went back and like for me, my strategy then became screw studying for the exam. Let me just take the exams as many times as possible so I can just memorize the question. So next time it gets a little bit easier. Right. Instead of trying to prep, right, and do everything I can to study and rehearse, I was like, let me just take the actual test. That's my practice. It cost a little bit of money, which is annoying, and time because I had to drive over like 45 minutes and I didn't have a car at the time. So I had to get rides or take the train or whatever. But I realized that the questions were the same. So I just kept taking it more and more. It happened I passed it the third time, But if I failed the third time, I would have memorized more questions. And so for me, my study strategy became fail as many times as I can so I could try and remember more questions. As soon as I walked out of the exam, I would try to write down all the questions I remembered. And then from there, the next time around, make sure I get those questions correctly. So it was like a reverse kind of way of testing, like I guess preparing. I prepared by failing, pretty much.
No, I love that. I actually just saw John Maxwell, to your point, like getting in the room, making sure that you're listening, consuming, and learning from people based on where you are now. And that was one of the biggest things that John Maxwell said as it relates to leadership and just his journey and how he's been able to fast track his coaching company. He said, because we are willing to try more things, and because we're willing to try more things, we're willing to fail. But every time we fail, we re-enter the marketplace better. And that's what I hear you saying. It's like it's kind of like, okay, if I fail, but what am I going to learn? I'm going to learn so much more. But first, I got to be willing to fail. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. So talk to us about your real estate journey. So after you passed it the third time, you got
Yeah.
into the business, and then what had happened?
So from there, now this is September of 2021, right? I got licensed. And Keller Williams, they had a bunch of training. And for me, hungry, like ambitious, don't know what on earth I got going on in this whole real estate space. So I would be at K Jewelers and I would have like the store iPad that I used to walk around with because we were in a mall. And then I would bring my iPad from home and then I would sneak on trainings and I would like sit all the way in the front of the store. So my manager, she wouldn't be able to see me. And so I would be on these real estate calls and trying to get as much information as I could. Within the first 4 months, I ended up closing my very first rental. And it was a funny story. That guy, very, very old school. I'm talking about like I tried to get him to sign some e-docs and he thought I was trying to scam him for his social security number and take all his information. I was like, listen, sir, this is a normal like representation agreement for like this little rental. We're signing a lease because he hasn't rented in like God knows how long. So it's like back when he rented, people shook hands and passed a check and that was all that was necessary. It's like, sir, totally different time periods, right? But around that time too, I started joining a bunch of free real estate groups. And one of the groups that I was in called Early Birds, and they meet from 6:30 to 7. And I'm normally at the gym at that time. And I was never sharing because I didn't know anything about real estate. But they talked about social media one day. And I was like, all right, let me type up a quick Facebook post and say some things on social media. Now, at that time, I wasn't using Reels or anything fancy. I'm just way younger than everyone else on the call. So I figured I got to know at least a thing or two that could probably help them out. And so that's what I did. I posted, and one of the co-hosts was like, John, do you mind teaching a class on this? And I was like, never taught a class before. And she was like, John, let me know when you want it scheduled. I'm like, okay, okay.
What?
And so that very first class ended up having over 440 realtors sign up for it. And that's how I kind of got into like doing the whole social media thing that I had going on for about a year. From there, now at the same
Wait,
time,
wait, wait. I gotta back up. Hold on. Because listen, this is from somebody who I teach courses, like I do marketing, we run ads. One post got you in front of the admin of this group, and then you taught a course to 400. What was the course about?
So it was on how intro to video was the exact title. So here's a nugget. Let me break it down for you besties here listening. Start fast, start ugly, figure out the rest later. Right.
Mm.
So I get asked to teach a social media class. I try to, turn her down. She told me yes. Anyway, so I was like, all right, now I have no other choice. So I never hosted a class before. And so here's what I did. I went on Google Forms. I created a little quick form on Google for the first time ever. That form was linked to a Google Sheet. Right. From there, what people I hopped on one of the calls and just posted a link to the Google form and people started signing up. And then the people go on the Google Sheet. Now, I never hosted a class before, so I didn't know how to send out registrations. So I would have my MailChimp account. I had to manually copy and paste the people from the Google Sheet into the MailChimp account,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
From the MailChimp, once they were uploaded, then I would send them the invitation for the Zoom link, right? So they can actually hop on the call on the day. Then I would go back into the Google Sheet and highlight everybody green. And then from there, but people kept on registering. It wasn't like a one-time event. It was like, it trickled in the first day. I think I had like 100 people register, but then from there, up until like the day of, like I remember like checking my computer right before I went live. We had like 380 registered, and we had like 205 people on the actual call live. And then another
Wow.
people like heard about it afterwards and they wanted the link as well. So it was just like constantly having to like send, copy and paste from MailChimp as people kept on registering. It's like, hey, John, I didn't get the link when I registered. And it was very ugly, right? It was not streamlined. It was not efficient, but I did it and it went
Yeah.
well. And the people showed up and they loved it. And I really capitalized on it because the week after was Keller Williams family reunion. So I knew everyone that was going to be there on that training was also going to be at family reunion. So I went in with
Yeah.
my hair in cornrows. Now I don't know if you see my headshot, but I had way more hair than I do now. Right. And so
Hmm.
everyone's expecting the hair because that's when my hair was in prime, afro, hugeness, whatever. And I went in my hair in cornrows to throw everybody off. That Sunday morning, I woke up extra early and washed my hair out. And then I had a shirt that says "Stop and Stare, just don't touch the hair." And like when I tell you I was a walking celebrity, like that entire day I was getting stopped taking photos because all the people from the class were also there. And then all these
Yeah, they
other random
remembered you.
people, yeah, and all these other random people were just wanted to take a photo with me. So I don't know where any of those photos are. They're probably somewhere in the cloud, but I never seen most of those photos to this day. But like as I said, that opportunity presented itself and I just figured the rest out.
So, okay, so you did the one rental with the old guy.
Yeah.
Now you're teaching courses. Are you continuing on with the real estate deal, or now have you shifted to coaching? Like, what does this look like for you?
Yeah, so honestly, the social media was gonna be a referral play. That was gonna be my way to get known in the real estate space. And then whenever someone thought of buying or selling in Connecticut, they would talk to me. So it
Yeah.
was an indirect way of building out like a list of referral partners. It wasn't ever to actually get into coaching or course creation or anything like that. This is just my way of getting known in the group. So when everyone thinks Connecticut, they send them to me. Right. That
Yeah.
was my strategy. And so from there, I got real estate that I got going on. I ended up quitting K Jewelers the year before, around close to about 2 months after I got licensed. So I stopped working there already, but I was still at the restaurant job that I was at, working about 30 hours. I started my podcast around that same time. And then now I have teaching these social media classes. And so I was juggling a whole lot. And I thought just because I was young and hungry and ambitious that I could take on the whole world. And I learned the hard way. Like, if you're not taking focused action and focused effort into like what you're doing, it doesn't matter how hardworking or how abundantly minded you are, like you are going to
Hmm.
fail miserably. Like you have to, especially when you're someone in my position. I'm coming in with no experience in that industry. I have no experience in business at all. Right. I wasn't, as I said, an
Yeah.
entrepreneur when I was younger. I just thought because I was young, hungry, and hardworking that would work out. And it's like I was doing too many different things because my podcast isn't even focused on anything real estate related. Right. That's more of like a purpose project. And so it's like I'm doing all these different things and all these different verticals, and like none of them were working out for me because they were all just took away all my bandwidth and dispersed it out. So it really diluted it down. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry.
Yeah.
And
No,
so
you're
from
good.
there, around June-ish, I went to a summit called Quantum Leap Summit. And after I went to that summit, you get 6 sessions of coaching for free. So I'm on these coaching calls. The first one, this is around, I just turned September of 2022, right? So I just turned 21. And then from there, my coach was like, John, like you're doing all these things, like it's not working out for you. I'm losing out on leads in real estate. Like my podcast numbers were going down at the time because I wasn't as consistent as I needed to be. The social media classes I was doing for free, and the restaurant I was making okay money, but it's like I didn't want to be there running around every weekend. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm in this
Yeah.
stage where like everything is just kind of like crumbling for me. And so I was like, screw real estate. I'm gonna take this social media, momentum that I got going on, keep teaching these classes for free, start offering content creation services for agents where I create the content for them. And then after my very first client, realized that I hated that too. So now I'm at this stage where like, damn, like real estate ain't work out, the social media stuff ain't work out, right? Nothing's working out. Like life just sucks, right? Everything is like falling apart. And that's when I decided to go all in on my podcast. And I started between like January and March of 2023. I hopped on probably like I got interviewed a little over 100 times. And I don't say this like proudly at all because honestly, there's a lot of people I probably could have made deeper connections with, but it would just back to back to back to back. I barely remember
Turn and burn.
who I was talking to because I was also doing my podcast at the time. And so it's like it wasn't my show, it was someone else's shows. And I'm just hopping back and forth between shows left and right, left and right. And fortunately, I was able to meet my now mentor, and I joined his mastermind in January of last year. And he had a course on how to use ChatGPT. Now, at
Hmm.
that time, I was already using ChatGPT for my podcast, right? This is when ChatGPT first came out and NAR wasn't covering it. None of the media, like major media outlets were covering it. And I was like, all right, let me see what he got going on with his course. He started using ChatGPT to create the course curriculum, and he like screen recording himself. So like you watch the course, and then at the end of the course, it's kind of like the magician revealing his magic tricks, like how he did it, right? Because he
Yeah.
showed himself using ChatGPT to create the same curriculum that I just watched, and I'm like, there's no way, like he just did that. And so 2 weeks after that, I taught a class on how to use ChatGPT, and I used ChatGPT to create the class. Now that class had about 300 people registered for that, and that was like where all pretty much like for me. And ever since then, I decided to go all in on using AI.
No, I love it. There's so much about your story that I think is amazing. And one is like you kept going until you figured out and you found your way. And even though, you're not operating as an agent right now, that experience actually propelled you. And now you are using AI to help and assist and teach agents how to use AI in their business. And I mean, in such a short, I know it may feel like a long time in your young years, but literally, I feel like, since the last time I got new tennis shoes, like you've lived this whole new life.
Yeah.
And now you are, and that's what I saw you do. I saw you break down Chat GTP and how to use AI in business. And it was just amazing. So let's talk about it with the besties. First of all, for someone who might like been living under a rock and not really know, they're intimidated, like what would your definition be of AI and how can you implement it in the real estate business?
Yeah, so for anyone like brand new, like you've been living in a rock forever, AI just stands for artificial intelligence, right? All it means is fancy robots, right? Let's keep it super simple, right? And so the main one we talk about, at least when in my trainings, at least, is the Chat GPT. Now, think of it as like a fancy chatbot. And the way I like to put it is like imagine you took Google and all the information that Google has on everything in the world, and then you took your best friend that you love talking to, that you can just talk to about anything, and they came together and had a baby. Like that's what Chat GPT is. Like you can talk
Mm-hmm.
to it like it's your best friend, but like it knows everything, like the answer to everything you can think of. And so like anyone that hasn't used it yet, a lot of people get overwhelmed because it's kind of like imagine taking your first swimming lesson in the middle of the ocean with no swim, like no life vest. Like that's what
Mm-hmm.
most people get, like most people get are going through right now. They just get thrown into AI. Oh, start using it for your business. It'll help you out. It'll save you time. And it's like, okay, but like, what do I use it for? Well, you can use it for literally everything. And because you could use it for almost everything, it overwhelms the majority of people. And so when I like start teaching people how to use it, it's like, hey, like there's a way to do it all. And the first thing you got to learn, it's called prompt engineering. And that's a very
Mm-hmm.
fancy word, right, for saying the art and the science of writing a prompt.
Yeah.
Now, a prompt, for anyone who doesn't know what that means, think of it like, let's say you're at a restaurant, right? And you order, let's say, a shrimp Alfredo. Well, your order is going to tell the chef exactly what to make, how you want it cooked, if you want something on the side, whatever, right? Your order tells the chef what to make. A prompt is the equivalent for ChatGPT. Your prompt tells ChatGPT what to make. So the better your prompt, the more specific your prompt, the better results that ChatGPT will generate. The same way, like if you're at a restaurant, you order some food, the same way the chef will make it, the same way ChatGPT makes whatever your prompt is.
No, I love that. And it's just funny when you actually gave this example when I saw you at the mastermind. And I thought to myself, my husband like cringes with me at a restaurant because I'm that person that I'm like, okay, I want the salad, but I want the dressing on the side. I want you to add red onions and I want you to hold the bacon, right? But if I didn't give it my very specific what I want, my specifications, then I would be disappointed with the result. And I do think that that is one of the ways that people use Chat GTP or another AI thing incorrectly, is because we give a very general statement. And now we're surprised when the result is like, oh, it sounds robotic. It doesn't sound like me. Let me get out of it. So, what is a prompt? Like, give me an example of a prompt that you would use in a real estate scenario.
Yeah, so first, I'll start off by saying what's not a prompt or not a good prompt, right? Because like just
Okay.
typing in anything to ChatGPT isn't going to get you what you're looking for, right? Even if you say, "Hey, write me a listing description for this," Great. It would write you a listing description, but then the next problem is, oh, John, I tried to use ChatGPT, but it sounded so robotic. It sounded too perfect. It didn't sound like me, and blah blah blah, and all these different excuses. And it's like, yeah, of course not, because you haven't learned how to use it well yet. And so I always follow this 4-step framework usually when I'm writing a prompt, and it goes, it's called the RACE framework for anyone that finds it easier to remember with acronyms, right? And so it stands for role, action, context, expectation. So let's break it down one letter at a time. So we start off with giving ChatGPT a role. Now, I used to use ChatGPT and I had the same exact problems, right? Oh, it sounded so robotic. It didn't sound like me. It sounded too perfect and yada, yada, yada. And so one day I was like, all right. And I normally use it for like my marketing stuff. So I was like, all right, imagine you're like a social media marketer and then create the content plan for me. And then I started to realize that whenever I gave ChatGPT a role, it would like give me an answer in the way that that role probably would answer. So
Mm-hmm.
like a real estate agent would answer differently than a social media marketer, which would answer differently than an attorney, which would answer differently than, a construction man. And so it's like I just started being creative and curious and saying like, let me type this in and see what ChatGPT comes up with. And then from there I'm like, all right, this is pretty decent. Let me take this a step further, right? And so one day, one of the marketers I love learning from is called Dan Kennedy. He's an old school marketer.
Oh
For
yeah,
anyone that
I like the
hasn't known him.
Dan.
And so I was like, all right, imagine you are Dan Kennedy. Like now create for me this like social media planner, this email for me. And then now it started writing in the tone of like Dan Kennedy. I'm like,
Mm,
oh shoot, like that's dope. Like, okay. And but the problem was I didn't know why it was writing the way it was doing. Cause like I know of Dan Kennedy's works, but like I'm not like a super master on like his philosophies and principles of marketing. And so I was like kind of confused because like of course the quality that ChatGPT was coming up with was better. I just didn't understand why I was making those changes and saying it in this way versus that way. And so I was like, all right, imagine you're Dan Kennedy and I just paid you like $100,000 for consulting, right? What suggestions, what tweaks, what feedback would you give me to fix this email? And now, not only did it write in the voice of Dan Kennedy like it did in the last part, right? But it also gave me the reasons why it did what it did, and like now it was kind of almost like giving me one-on-one consultation
mm,
based on Dan Kennedy's principles. And I was like, oh crap, like now I understand why it's writing like this. Now I understand why it said this versus that, or started off the email like, you know, so that's kind of like giving ChatGPT a role. And you can get creative as you like. But like that for me was kind of like my progression as to like giving ChatGPT a role. It was just me like trying to just figure out like, all right, what can you do this or can you write like this guy or that guy? And it's
right.
sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it does. And so it's like if the person you're telling ChatGPT to act like just got big in the last year or two, it might not work. But someone like old school, like Dan Kennedy, that already has tons of IP out there on the internet, ChatGPT most likely is going to be trained on them. And there's probably another way you can go around it later on that we'll get into. That's a little more advanced, but to keep it basic, that's giving ChatGPT a role, right? Now the next letter is a lot simpler. It's action. Literally just tell ChatGPT what you want it to do. Like you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
get fancy or creative. Just be clear, specific. I want you. Let's say, imagine you're Dan Kennedy. Now create a 10 touch email campaign for me. Right. That's the action. Something simple. Be clear. Don't be cute or clever or creative or whatever. Tell ChatGPT what you wanted to do. Right.
Yeah.
Then from there, context. ChatGPT is trained on a trillion data points. It is not trained on you. The reason ChatGPT sounds robotic is not is because it doesn't know who you are. That's like telling a stranger to write you an autobiography, right? Or write a biography for you, right? It's not gonna work out. It don't know who you are, right? Same thing with ChatGPT. It doesn't know how you talk. It doesn't know how you like to say things. It doesn't know anything about you, right? So give ChatGPT a little bit of context. Let's say you're writing a 10 touch email campaign. Let's go with that, right? A little bit of context may be this is going to be for people who signed up for my end of the year client appreciation event, right? And
Yeah.
to follow up with them afterwards to see how they like it in case they may have some potential, real estate needs in the future, right? Whatever it is, but give it some context. Make these email very personalized and very any more so like these are already past clients. Whatever context you could give ChatGPT around
Right.
that situation.
The more specific we are, the better the quality is we're gonna get.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
100%. And so, like, tell ChatGPT, of course, about you, but also about like the situation at hand. right? So I would tell her about this imaginary client appreciation event that we got planned. And then the final step, right? So we got role, action, context so far. The final step is expectation. For anyone that's hungry right now, I apologize. We're going to use another food example, right? Right. Going back to the restaurant, let's say you order a New York strip, right? Now, if you just say, let me get a New York strip, right? It may come out medium. It may come out medium rare. It may come out extra rare. It may come out extra well
Well
done.
done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Let's say you wanted a medium and it came out well done. Well, you can't get mad at your server because you also didn't tell your server. Now, maybe you could say that they should have asked you, but for the case of this example, let's just say you didn't tell your server how you wanted your New York strip cooked, and it comes out well done, and you're over there chewing on a tire. You can't get mad at your server because you didn't tell them your expectation, right? Same thing with like Chat GPT, right? You can't get mad at it for creating some trash results if you didn't tell it what you was looking for, because you might make sense, but Chat GPT is interpreting what you say in a way it interprets it.
Yeah,
It's the
very
same way, like
literally.
exactly, and so it's the same way, like having an argument over text. In your head, what you said wasn't that rude, but to the other person, right? They, you're coming at their throat, and now it's like there's a miscommunication, right? Misunderstanding. So with ChatGPT, right, you have to give it that expectation. So for this example, I want you to write it in a very formal, professional tone. I want you to keep each email under 120 words. I want you
Hmm.
to make the email very punchy, right? And add some humor in there, right? Whatever it may be, adding an expectation helps you and ChatGPT to be on the same page. Now, if you have a very big project that you're working on, like for example, a 10 touch email campaign, that's a decent amount of emails right there. So what I would
Yeah.
do then is like at the end of my prompt, I would say like, do you understand? Question mark. If so, please provide an example. And that way,
Mm.
ChatGPT almost gives me like this little test, to see if we're on the same page and we can get it fixed before we even start really working on the program. That way, you don't have to constantly like revise and tweak and edit after every single email. So, like a full example using this framework would be: imagine you're Dan Kennedy, right? I want you to create a 10 touch email campaign for my end of the year client appreciation event. This event is going to be for past clients who have recently bought or sold a home with me in the year 2024. All these past clients, I want them to invite their friends and family as well. This is open to, whoever they like to invite. Each person gets plus two invitations. I expect the emails all to be written in a very formal, professional tone. Each email should be under 150 words and be written to express my gratitude. Do you understand? If so, please provide an example of the first email and then see what ChatGPT comes up with. So that's like the race
Look,
framework in full effect.
whoa, okay, that's much different than what I do. I'm like, write a client appreciation email, invite them to see the Little Mermaid. So that is why my results are so much different from yours. But I love that race framework. So role, we have to define the role, tell them what action, give context, and properly set the expectation.
Exactly.
No, that is awesome. Okay, just a couple quick questions because I know that we are running out of time. But y'all, John is so dope. I'm gonna make sure that you know exactly how to get at him because I know you have courses and you have different things that you do. What do you say to the person who is just very hesitant in using AI at all? Like, what is your feedback or advice for them?
Yeah, so there's this graph that I usually share in my presentation. It's a lot more powerful with the visual, but I'll explain for all you guys listening. So the first like 13 and a half ish percent of people, right? These people are called the early adopters and innovators, right? These people are the ones that are go all in. They're the people who come up with the new ideas. They find all the new things before they come out, right? They're on the front lines of whatever it is that's innovation, that's creative, that's breaking the boundaries, breaking the molds. Like they're on the front line. They always go all in. And so these people usually always have early movers advantage, right? They
Mm-hmm.
always seem out of reach, right? Because they are always going all in, and hence they're always 100 steps ahead, right? Because they never dabble, right? And after the early movers, right, go all in, then that's when the early majority of society goes to go all in. That's like the next 30% of people, right? They were like, all right, The early movers, they battle tested it. They tested out all the kinks. No one, hopefully died or whatever. Like I think it's safe enough to step my foot in it and start using it. Right. Now these people start to go all in. They don't have an early movers advantage, but they start to make use of tools and get in front of most people, but they're not really as far ahead of the innovators and the early movers, right? Then after the early movers go in, then the late majority of society, this is like the next 30, 35-ish% of people. It's like, all right, a bunch of people are using this. All right, let me finally get on it. These people are usually either not using it at all or dabbling. That's where we're currently at right now, right? A lot of people have still yet to really use ChatGPT in their business. They're dabbling, they're on their fence, maybe dipping their toes in the water. Right now, ChatGPT alone, right? Now there's a bunch of other different AI tools. Just off this one, there's already 180 million users, and their website's getting close to 2 billion monthly visits. And so people are starting to really start using this technology now and are starting to slowly get ahead. But my biggest fear for anyone listening, right? There's this last group of people, right? After the late majority, these last group of people, they're called the laggards, right? The laggards
Mm,
are the people who never go all in. They're the people, they don't even dip their toe in the water. They just never try at all. They stick with
mm,
their ways until, they become irrelevant or just impossible for them to stay in business, right? They just don't want to change. These are the people who have the flip phones in 2024, right?
yeah.
These are the people who just for whatever reason just don't want to embrace this change, the innovation. They worked, back in the day, and that for them, that's good enough until one day good enough isn't good enough. And
Yeah.
then they find themselves stuck. Like these people would never go all in. So like we have the doers, right? We have the dabblers, and then like all the way in the other end of the spectrum, we have the laggards who just never go all in. They never change. They just stay, in their old ways until they eventually become a fossil and go out of business. And so
Mm,
my biggest thing that I always say, it's like AI won't replace you. Someone using AI will. And for
mm.
anyone listening, like I want you to write that down. Like AI won't replace you. Someone using AI will. Because
Wow.
imagine a solo agent, right, who's using AI, like they're going to be able to work like they have a team, right? But then imagine the person who has a team and their admins using AI, and then
Yeah.
other buyers or agents are using AI. Now they're showing specialists using AI, and their TC is using AI, and their Turner and Lending. Like, how on earth are you going to compete with the efficiency, with the productivity of the mega agent who has everyone on their team on the same, and using this technology to boost their creativity, to do what other people take weeks to do in a matter of hours? You'll be left in the dust. There's literally no way. So it's like one of those situations where it's like you get with it or get lost.
No, get with it or get lost. Well, you know what? I think that that is a perfect spot to end this amazing interview. You have dropped, look, race. I'm looking at it myself. Like, okay, I got my roles, my action, my context, my expectation. And look, while we're setting expectations, I know that I expect that there are going to be some besties that are like, I want to talk to John myself. So where can they find you and what do you have available for the people?
Yeah, so I have something amazing. So usually when I use ChatGPT, I always talk about like using it for marketing. And so for all the besties out there who are struggling with social media, need a little help, right? Make it a little bit easier. I actually got a free course for you guys. It's my free AI content course. This course is going to help you, one, talk about what we talked about today in a little bit more depth, right? So you have some more time. I know we were going a little quickly today, right? But it teaches you how
Yeah.
to start using ChatGPT. And then the second half of the course is really all about helping you create a year's worth of content in under an hour. So it's a
Wait, wait,
free,
wait. A year?
yeah, a year's worth of content in under an hour. It'll help you create your whole content calendar for the next 12 months. You can honestly keep on doing this forever. So I guess a whole lifetime content calendar, honestly. But if you keep on using it. So it's a free my AI content course. You just go to stop and stare, right? .media/chatgpt. Right. Again, that's stop and stare .media/chatgpt. And you can get the free AI course in there. And I hope you guys all take advantage of it, because if you're not on social media, like what are you doing? It's 2024.
No, I love it. I love it. And y'all, we are going to link all of John's links. We're going to link his course, link his social media, everything exactly where you are consuming this podcast. Well, thank you, bestie John. I don't know if we trying to decide if we're gonna call the boys boy besties or real estate homies. What you think? Boy bestie or homie?
I think homie sounds a little more manly.
Okay,
I
okay.
think,
All right,
yeah.
well, thank you, homie. Thank you for being on the podcast. And besties, thank you so much. I know that you got so much out of this episode. I for sure did. And do me a favor, go ahead and hit the share button. As a matter of fact, download the link and just literally text it to your real life real estate bestie so that they know all about the podcast. Leave us a review, and I will talk to you next week. If you enjoyed this episode and you have a real life bestie that you think it would resonate with, y'all, do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that share button, because you know what? We are better together. Make sure you share the podcast, and I appreciate your reviews. I appreciate you giving me 5 stars more than you know. I'll talk to you next week.